Hello and welcome to Spectacular Suits Saturday, the show where I teach you and myself about the origins of our favorite Spider-Man costumes. Are they iconic or just flat out unknown? If you love it, I'll be sure to explain it. For the first episode, I think it's best we start with the costume that defined the character, the Steve Ditko / Stan Lee design. First appearing in Amazing Fantasy number 15, this Peter Parker from Earth 616 was the one that started it all. Peter Parker was just your average science nerd who lived with his aunt and uncle. One day, his school takes a visit to the science exhibit where a radioactive spider lands on Peter's hand and gives him a bite. Peter then stumbled outside and manages to avoid being hit by a car and begins to crawl up a wall. Later on that same day, Peter tries to think of how he can use his new powers and decides that a wrestling match with a cash prize would be his claim to fame. Peter then dons a homemade wrestling outfit and makes an absolute fool out of Crusher Hogan. After the fight, Peter decides to lean more into the spider persona and fashions himself a red and blue costume and calls himself Spider-Man. Peter one night begins to leave an event, but as he does, he runs into a thief but decides to let him go. But a few days later, that same thief ends up killing Uncle Ben. Enraged, Peter dons his costume and chases down the murderer. Peter begins to beat him until getting a closer look. He recognizes him as the man he could have stopped, and with immense guilt, chooses to hand him over to the police and swings away, just thinking that he could have stopped all of this. We then go to the famous line, not said by Uncle Ben, but rather Stan Lee, that with great power, there must also come great responsibility. Parker's first costume is as iconic as you can get for a superhero design. Sporting a red and blue suit, this costume had a webbed pattern along all the red areas of the costume as well as a spider logo in the middle of his chest. The lenses were small and squinty and had features such as a hooded mask, a hole for his web shooters to go through, webbed wings for his armpits, as well as a blue spider logo on the back of the suit. Got a suit you really like and want me to cover next? Let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to cover it on the next Spectacular Suits Saturday.